My mother called me Trevor Never, and she claimed that it was because I never did what she asked me to do. And I claim I behaved extremely well at all times. Somewhere in the middle was the truth, and I know I was a bit of a handful. The year that we moved house, there were 4 kids in our family under the age of 6. My sister was ready to go to kindergarten, and my younger siblings were toddlers, and I needed supervision. So, Mum and Dad sent me, along with my sister, for the last 3 months of the year to kindergarten. So, the following year, my sister graduated and went to first grade, and I went back to kindergarten for my full year. And contrary to what my sister tells you, I did not fail kindergarten. And I was very little, and the big boys had a lot of fun with the little boy. And in fact, there was a bit of a pecking order established, and where was I? I was way at the bottom. And so I got treated like I was a strange animal. In fact, my first nickname was Squirrel. Considering there are no squirrels in Australia, they had no idea. They just thought I was some furry little rodent. And of course, the ironic part was that was about the most pejorative that they could be. And for me, the big kids were paying me attention, so I leant right into that. Now, I was not athletically inclined in any way, but I had a good memory, so therefore I looked like I was really smart. And in grade 3, I was the only one who could spell chrysanthemum. And boy, did that poke the bullies right in their lizard brain. I think that part of the brain is called the ignoramus. And then we started getting our report cards half year and end of year at 3rd grade, and we would try, I don't know why, but it was the top 6 were considered to be some strange status symbol. And I happened to be in that at all times. And the bullies hated being told they were not so smart. So they just piled on some more bullying. Now, this bullying went on all the time, and my parents were absolutely no help at all. I went home one day and I was crying, and my mum said, "Trev, what's wrong?" I said, "Mum, I've been bullied." And she said, "Everything will be okay. We love you, Trev." And she claims that I ran off in the backyard like a naive little boy and played happily for the rest of the day. But I know that parents have influence, but in this case, the amount of the bullying overrode that influence, and it took me a lot more to get back to where I should be, more than just a "Trev, we love you." So comes 6th grade, and we get our report cards at half year. And I put it in my school bag, and all my top 6 friends came over and said, "What position did you get in the class?" But I knew something that they didn't, and that was my parents told me never ever to lie and to always tell the truth. So when it said, "Take your report card home to your parents," I did. That was what I did. I had to follow the rules. The problem was that backfired because the result was I didn't have any idea of when I should tell or not tell every single truth. And that personality deficiency appeared in 6th grade when the headmaster came into class and wanted to know who had caused the destruction of school property. And of course, he knew it was some of the kids in our class. It was the bullies. Well, in my desire to know and tell the truth, I put my hand up and said, "I know." So I was dragged off to the headmaster's office to spill. And at the end of the spill, he told me I was going to be punished. And I thought, that's really weird. If you punish the telltale, if you punish the rat, how will you ever find the truth of future crimes? And to this day, all I knew was I was being punished for telling the truth. Now, the the strangest part about the whole telling the truth was that I had to get the cane. And the cane was our corporal punishment. And it was a weapon. It was about 3 foot long and made a really scary noise when it was swished. I think you would call it a switch. And this switch had to be switched across your hand several times if you had committed some kind of crime. And the headmaster would wave it around for a lot of show and a lot of fear, and then swipe it across your hand. The number of times was based on his mood or the horrific level of the crime. So I was standing there, and the urban myth of this punishment meant that I was scared and shaking, and he said, "Hold out your hand," and it was visibly shaking. And he swished it in the air for the show and then swiped it on my hand, and it hurt. And it hurt my pride, and I cried. Now, a few weeks later, I happened to be hanging out with the kids who were smoking in 6th grade. And in the morning, I was called into the headmaster's office because although I was not smoking, I had committed a crime of being there. So another cane, and another time I cried. Wednesday afternoons were our sports day, and we would all join up in our teams. I was in the Kangaroos, and I really loved long jump and high jump, but I was little, so I wasn't very good at any of them. Now, in our team, we had several of the young Aboriginal kids. And the Aboriginal kids, their culture meant that it was really difficult for them to learn the traditional curriculum of school that we were learning, so they put them in the special class, the OA class. It was called Opportunity for Advancement, which meant it was just a bunch of slow learners. So these kids were ostracized for their skin color and their lack of traditional academic prowess. So they were outcasts. I was an outcast. We became friends. And they became my buddies. We hung out during sports day. And I remember one of them was just amazing. He was athletic and he was enthusiastic. And he would absolutely show up all the bigger kids. And the bullies decided that me being his mentor and him beating them was not good, so they beat him up. Well, in the Aboriginal culture, you don't tell. You don't tell anybody what happened, you suffer. And so he was silent. And the bullies pointed at me. So I was called to the headmaster's office because I was the criminal. And I knew when I got to the headmaster's office that something was different. If the headmaster did not believe the truth, then he was just another bully in my life. And that was a defining moment for me. In that particular moment, I realized I had power. And the power I had was that I knew truth. And when you know truth, there are people who will fight you because they don't want that truth to be true. And there are people who will try and bring you down. And if that's the case, the world isn't fair. But I finally knew my place in it. And that pivotal moment, consciously or subconsciously, has helped form and inform who I am today. I get to travel the world speaking and motivating and inspiring people on stages all over. And I'm making a difference because I'm inspiring people and guiding them to find their passion, shine their light, and make a difference in their world. And that day, when I stood there with my hand out, waiting for that pain, waiting for that punishment, it was different. And the swish came down, and I never cried.